Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Martyn Lucas Investor. Well, we've just had Jensen Huang deliver the earnings, and it was a good earnings. The stock is up. We're happy. But now we're going to hear from Jensen in just a couple of moments' time in a special interview. So we're excited about that. Get a reaction to how the earnings went directly. So welcome everybody to the show. It's lovely to have you here. Just coming up in a moment, the NVIDIA interview with Jensen Huang. We're going to cover it live. It's a fantastic evening. I hope you're all enjoying NVIDIA's earnings tonight. It didn't blow off the top, which is kind of great. It's exactly what we wanted. We didn't want an explosive blow off the top in earnings. We wanted a good fundamental earnings, steady growth. This is what we want. And because of that, as you can see, the S&P is rising as well. It puts stability in the market. This is what we want. Remember, I've always said, you want to own NVIDIA, not trade NVIDIA. So we're very excited. So if you've just tuned in, we're going to listen into a special interview now. It's going out live in a couple of seconds. Tap the like button. We're just chilled out tonight, taking the tie off. Been in a suit since 6 o'clock this morning. So that's 12 hours. I've been in the studio so far. And this is our last event of the day. So tap the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you are new. And we hope you enjoy tonight's special interview coming up in just a minute and a half from now. So stand by. It should be an exciting evening. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. We all want to hear how Jensen feels after the earnings. He's a good cheerleader, some would say, for the stock. Some people are a bit concerned about that and feel that he's too much of a cheerleader. What do you think? Well, you'll have your say in a minute. Dennis Bruckner has just become a member of the channel, and Mr. Drone Boy as well. Welcome to you. Let me put the messages on the screen. Who have we got here? Hello, Helios. How are you doing? Hiya. Best wishes, everyone. We are just 2 minutes away from our interview. Hymns, David Doolittle. We could have covered that, but no one requested it, so we didn't. Enjoy the content, Martyn. Simply, easy to understand explanations. Thank you very much. Let people go. I love it, love it, love it. All right, then. Should I vote if I'm not sure what is going on with NVIDIA? Well, that's entirely up to you. If you can vote or not, that's entirely up to you. Eugene McCombs, I want to thank Eugene for all the posts that you've put out and all the sharing you're doing everywhere on Facebook, X, and Blue Sky. You're in contention for our Fan of the Year alongside Mike. Very, very nice indeed. All right, good stuff. All right, so we've just got a minute to go before the event. Let me just check around the studio. We're just wrapping up. We're waiting for the interview to go live. DD, how you doing? Good evening, my friend. Stephen Farland, good evening. You have taught me lots. I appreciate you. You're very, very welcome. That's my absolute pleasure. All right, if you just tuned in, we've got the Jensen Huang interview about to kick off. You don't want to miss this one. It's a special event, and it's coming up in just a second. Are you ready? Tap the like button, click the like button, and consider subscribing. We've just had Jensen Huang's live earnings, and now we're going to hear a special live interview. It's just seconds away. I'm just making sure I've got everything working as it should do. Have you all subscribed? Have you all tapped the like button? Just seconds away. Can you please ask Jensen? I'm not interviewing Jensen personally. This is a live event that I'm bringing to you. I'm not interviewing Jensen personally. This is a live event that I'm bringing you in the next couple of seconds. So stand by. I'm going to feed it to you. This is happening live. It's a live interview, unedited, unscripted, and I am simply bringing it to you as a world premiere. It's not been seen before because it's happening live. Okay? All right. Hey, Martyn, I really wanted to hear the answers to Mika's questions earlier. Yes, unfortunately, she didn't she didn't
talked about it,
pull back.
Overheating issues.
Anyway, let's get ready for this special event.
CEO Jensen Huang admitted that
tap the like button.
Cost them a few months, but he was quick to reassure investors.
And live Q&A as well afterwards if you wish it.
It's the same issues with upcoming Blackwell products like the Blackwell Ultra. So basically, the supply chain problems are clearing up, easing. These production challenges and the launch of their new products are weighing on margins, which dropped to 71% for Q1, lower than analysts' estimates, and why we saw the stock fall initially right at when the press release came out. But several times on the earnings call, CFO Colette Kress reassured investors that margins would climb back up to the 70s range by the second half of this year. Reiterated last quarter as well. There's one big question mark, though, hanging over the chip sector completely. It's what's happening with U.S. export controls and tariffs. CFO Colette Kress was pretty straightforward, saying it's still unknown what the Trump administration plans to do and what. But she did mention that NVIDIA expects their data center sales to China to continue at the current pace, absent of any changes to export controls. At the end, CEO Jensen Huang teased the launch of their products, Blackwell Ultra, the next iteration Rubin, which is that architecture. But all of those details and more are going to be revealed at GTC, which is dubbed the Woodstock of AI, and often a big catalyst, a positive catalyst, I should say, for NVIDIA shares, John.
Yeah, on all of these topics, pretty much, we unpacked in greater detail. You're going to hear from Jensen in just a moment. But I think there's still a question among investors about the pace of demand. And he made a case for it continuing because not just of the orders that they've got in right now and the indications, but the capital build out, right?
Precisely. He said that the increase in compute is only going to keep climbing with each iteration.
If you just tuned in, tap the like button. We're about to hear from Jensen, live reaction after the earnings.
Less quality
live interview.
NVIDIA GPUs like the H800s, and you could, do really. He's implying that in the world, when you're doing when you get along that scale, that you can continue to buy even more chips. And we saw that with Grok 3. That was Elon Musk's AI large language model. They originally had planned 100,000 chips, and then they doubled that to 200,000 in their data center. So that's just proving that you need even more hardware in order to keep up with this compute, at least for the near term. That's what he's saying.
All right. Christina, thanks.
Thanks.
And I started my interview with Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, talking about the ramp, which he called extraordinary. Here's what he had to say.
We had a fantastic quarter, a terrific ramp. Nothing was easy about it. And a couple of quarters ago, of course, people were worried about how successfully we'd be able to ramp something as complex as Blackwell. Blackwell, people don't, maybe they just forget that it's not just a chip, but it's a whole system that's a ton and a half, has a million components. It's incredibly hard to build. It's built in 350 plants around the world, and 100,000 different operators, factory operators, contribute to building this thing. And so I think it was logical to be concerned about the ramping of Blackwell, but we have now successfully ramped Blackwell. The other concern that people had was the Hopper Blackwell create a pocket, an air pocket. I think we're now well successfully behind the air pocket. We're going to have a good quarter this quarter. We had a great quarter. We're going to have a good quarter next quarter. And we've got a fairly good pipeline of demand for Blackwell.
Yeah, the guide was also above, as you mentioned. Now, earlier today, speaking of demand, I was talking to Amazon CEO Andy Jassy. He told me that as of now, if he had more AI resources to sell, he could sell more. That's kind of the short-term signal of demand that you talked about on the call. Tell me more about the midterm signals that investors should be aware of that give you confidence in the continued demand, the scale outs of data centers, AI factories, relative to what you've historically seen.
The short-term signal are just our POs and the forecasts. And on top of that, the forecasted are new startups that are spinning off. And some of these are quite famous. And, at the risk of forgetting any of them, I won't mention any of them, but there's some really, really fantastic startups that have come out as a result of new reasoning AI capabilities and artificial general intelligence capabilities that they have breakthroughs in, and several of them. There's several of them that are related to agentic AIs, really exciting. There's several of them related to physical. There's just handfuls of each one of them, and each one of them needs additional compute. And that's, the type of things that Andy talks about, because they need to go to AWS and they have urgent need for more compute right away. And so that's on top of what we already knew to have POs and forecasts and such. The midterm comes from the fact that this year's capital investment for data centers is so much greater than last year's. And of course, we had a very large year last year. It stands to reason that with Blackwell and with all the new data centers going online, we're going to have a fairly great year. Now, long term, the thing that's really exciting is we're just at the beginning of the reasoning AI era. This is the time when AI is thinking to itself before it answers a question. Instead of just immediately generating an answer, it'll reason about it, maybe break it down step by step, maybe some searching in its own mind, and creates and composes a smart answer for you. The amount of computation necessary to do that reasoning process is 100 times more than what we used to do. So if you could imagine, we thought computation, the amount of compute necessary was a lot last year. And then all of a sudden, reasoning AI, DeepSeek was an example of that, ChatGPT 4o is an example of that, Grok 3 reasoning is an example of that. So reasoning AI models now need a lot more than what we used to
let me stop you there,
that puts even more load.
Because some people took DeepSeek to mean actually that you need less compute, right? Because the initial report was that they were doing more with less. But you're saying, in fact, some of what came out of DeepSeek was the opposite, that there's going to be more compute demanded. Unpack that for me.
There are three phases how AI works, how AI is developed largely. Number one is pre-training. It's kind of like us going through high school. A lot of basic math, basic language, basic everything. That basic understanding of human knowledge is essential to do what's the next step, which is called post-training. In post-training, you might get human feedback. It's like a teacher showing it to you. We call it reinforcement feedback. You might and do thought experiments. This is preparing for a test. You're doing a whole lot of practices. We call it reinforcement learning AI feedback. You could either also do tests and practice, and we call it reinforcement learning verifiable reward feedback. So now basically it's AIs teaching AIs how to be better AIs. That post-training process is where an enormous innovation is happening right now. A lot of with these reasoning models, and that computation load could be 100 times more than pre-training. And then here comes inference, the reasoning process. Instead of just spewing out an answer,
Black donated $1.99 to a super chat.
It thinks about how best to answer that question, breaks it down step by step, might even reflect upon it.
Everything is
come
live
up with
here,
several
always.
versions, pick the best one, and presents it to you. So the amount of computation that we have to do, even at inference time now, is 100 times more than what we used to do when ChatGPT first came out. And so all of a sudden, the combination of all these ideas, largely related to reinforcement learning and synthetic data generation and reasoning, all of this is just causing compute demand to go sky high.
Now, about price performance, because those things that I think a lot of investors are trying to figure out. They see the hyperscalers coming out with their own chips. They say, hey, boy, there are a lot of customers who don't have a lot of money to spend. They want to get the most bang for their buck. So they view Trainium, Inferentia, Microsoft chips, Google's chips as potential competitors for NVIDIA. But at the same time, you talked on the earnings call about performance per watt, right? And so it seems to me, I know our Jim Cramer is going to be there with you there next month. That's where you introduce new products and new powerful use cases. If your performance of what you're coming out with next is that much higher than what's otherwise available on the market, does that mean, would you argue that your price performance actually ends up better than what's cheaper?
The reason why we sell so much is because our price performance is the best. And it's absolutely the case that performance per watt is incredibly important. And the reason for that is because a data center is only so large. That data center could be 250 megawatts or it could be a gigawatt. But within that data center, however large it is, you want the amount of revenues you can generate to be as high as possible. So you want to do two things. You want to generate very high quality tokens. AI is expressed in tokens, and that's what you monitor. That's dollars per million tokens. You want to generate very high quality tokens because you could get better pricing on that, better ASP. On the other hand, you want to get as many tokens out of that data center as you can. And in order to do that, your performance has to be excellent and your performance per watt has to be excellent. And so the simple way of thinking about that is if your performance per unit energy is the highest, the revenue to help a company generate is the absolute. And if you look at the way we are driving our roadmap between Hopper and Blackwell, our token generation rate for these reasoning AI models can be as high as 25 times. That's the same thing as saying that factory can generate 25 times more revenues using Blackwell than you could using Hopper before that.
Right.
Which is the reason why Blackwell is so great. And then of course, a roadmap that's once a year, and every single year we're increasing our performance per dollar, performance per energy, performance per watt, so that everybody's data centers become more energy efficient on the one hand, generate more revenues on the other hand.
So let me ask you about your China business. You talked on the call about how the percentage of revenue is half what it was before export controls. Was the emergence of DeepSeek, which some have cast as a workaround, some of those restrictions, does it tell us anything about the effectiveness of export controls?
It's hard to tell whether export control is effective. The thing that I can tell you is this. Our percentage revenues in China before export controls is twice as high as it is now. There's a fair amount of competition in China. Export control and otherwise, Huawei, other companies are quite rigorous and very, very competitive. And so I think that ultimately software finds a way. Maybe that's the easiest way of thinking about it. You know, software is always, whether you're developing software for a supercomputer or software for a personal computer or software for a phone or software for a game console, you ultimately make that software work on what system that you're targeting, and you create great software. And so that's kind of the beauty of software engineers. They're incredibly innovative and clever in this way. Our architecture is about the flexibility of software, and which is kind of nice. But ultimately, here in the United States, if you look at where we are now compared to what is controlled, GB200 is probably something along the lines 60 times the total rate of what is being shipped in China that's currently export controlled.
Okay.
And so the separation of performance is quite high. You know, ultimately, what we know we experience is a great deal of competition there.
Real quick, I think last quarter you said demand for Blackwell was insane. This quarter you said it's extraordinary. Those about the same? Is one better than the other?
My Blackwell is better today than it was at last quarter. And the reason for that is because we, of course, ramped up into production. We exceeded our target. And the teams did an amazing job. As you recall, we had a hiccup in our design flaw in Blackwell that we found early on last quarter or quarter before that. And we recovered tremendously well, and I'm very proud of the team for that. And so for those reasons, I feel pretty great from a execution perspective. From a demand, you know, DeepSeek was fantastic. It was fantastic because it open sourced the reasoning model that's absolutely world-class. Just about every AI developer in the world today has either incorporated R1 using, it's called distillation, distilled from R1, or using techniques that have been open sourced out of R1 so that their models could be a lot more capable. Across AI has become better as the last several months. And so I'm excited about that. And the demand for computation, for inference time, for test time scaling, which is one of the reasons why Grace Blackwell NVLink 72 is so exciting. That feature is now more prominent than ever, more demanded than ever. And I think the demand side of it is more exciting too.
Jensen Huang, thank you, CEO of NVIDIA. Hope to see you soon.
There we go. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Tomorrow morning, we're back with the opening bell. We're live 12 hours a day. We aim to be the most honest channel on YouTube TV. I'm in the studio 12 hours a day. Tomorrow night, you've got an event you can't afford to miss. Tomorrow night, I'm covering the SoundHound earnings. We know recently Jensen Huang let shares go, their investment go of SoundHound. We're covering SoundHound tomorrow night on the main channel and Archer Aviation on the extra channel. So join us tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope everyone tapped the like button and you consider subscribe. You subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you ever so much indeed. I'm going to get off. I've now been in the studio for 12 hours and 18 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone who gave a super chat tonight to support this. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you back in the morning. Thank you very much indeed. Until next time, as always, I'm all invested. I'm all in. I hope you are. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.